Hi, I'm Jason Sterling, and this is brought to you by complimentary early access from the EA Game Changers program. Thanks for watching. Hi, I'm Jason Sterling, and there are two big things I really love doing with The Sims 4, storytelling and building. This video is the second in a trio of videos following some of my building in the new town of Del Sol in the Sims 4 expansion pack, Get Famous. I'm outlining some of my ideas and tips and tricks for building, not just here in Del Sol, but anywhere in the Sims game. The first video dealt with setting a scene at the Hotel California for storytelling, while this one will be more purely a build tutorial set at the Del Amo Oaks Galleria Mall and Tower. During this episode, we're going to be at what I think of as the quintessential Los Angeles defining building, a shopping mall, and specifically its parking garage. I was inspired to an extent by the Galleria malls in both Dallas and Houston and the old Sherman Oaks Galleria in Los Angeles. The concept, of course, being a shopping mall combined with office buildings and hotels. I was inspired to take this route because this is the first time that we've been given lots placed side by side abutting each other in The Sims 4. So I wanted a build that would play off that closeness, something that is meant to be a whole structure, but spread across two lots. I also wanted to give the appearance of a single structure despite the current limitation in the game, where it's not possible to actually build to the full edge of the lot. It seemed a parking garage with a central stairway would accomplish this. Following that flowed the idea that I might be able to elevate the 4 floors of the tower higher by placing them on the parking garage and lifting them above the mall. This would give the tower the stature it needed to appear to be a true tower. Bringing me to the first thing to be covered in this tutorial, a custom parking garage utilizing the dead space within a multi-floor foundation. The second thing to be covered will be a way of setting a custom spawn point to direct a sim to a non-traditional spawn location, like here or here, when arriving at a lot, instead of like this spot here, which is out front. Okay, to start on turning this to this, I do a basic map out of spaces for parking. My general rule of thumb is 3 by 5 squares on the grid for a single car. I also add an additional square surrounding those spaces for walking and 3 or 4 additional squares fronting the spaces as a sort of imaginary driving lane for a total grid of 16 by 10 squares for this example. But you can set it how it suits you. Keep in mind how much space you need to build your structure on top of the parking garage as well. I then frame the space with a half wall defining the structure. Then for realism and decorative effect, I add support columns and panels around the outside edge. Next, I want the foundation height to be equal to a standard wall height. So I place a staircase and then I raise the foundation until it's equal with the staircase height. Just play around with it until it's exactly equal. Then I'll connect the stairway to the roof surface using just an L-shaped piece of decking from the build menu. You can see the stairwell has a tricky little sort of weird glitch thing there, but you can easily put it back into place. And then if you're going to build up there, or if you just want to have your sim go up there for some reason, it is easily accessible. It's time to enter the cheats I'll need for this build. You can do this from the start as well. I just happen to have done it at this point. Press Ctrl-Alt-C at the same time to open the command box in the upper left part of the screen as shown. The first cheat is MoveObjects On, or MOO. This will allow us to place items in the air and other non-traditional placements. The second cheat is Show Hidden Objects, or SHO. This allows us access to various hidden assets, among them the particular foundation type we need to accomplish this build. Go to the foundation options in build mode and look for the foundation EP03GEN shell foundation and apply it. This is a special type of foundation that allows the existing foundation to become transparent. You can see immediately that it is both effective and flawed. We're going to counter the flaws shortly. You can also see here that I'm taking this small bump out for the stairs, creating a solid room, out of it by blocking it off from the main floor, and then I'm going to change its foundation to a more solid type. We don't want it to be see-through like we do the parking garage itself. The flaw here with the parking garage, as you can see, was the flooring. There's no flooring and there's no ceiling. It's basically open, top and bottom. You can see the sky through the top. You can see all the way down, you know, there in the bottom. But we are going to counter that. To start, we're going to copy the existing room we have here on top of the garage structure and place it below ground as a basement. It does need to be placed directly below the structure we've just built above ground. We're going to create a false floor and ceiling using the Stony Goodness slabs from the Spa Day pack found under the Fountain Decorations menu. Take one of those in white and enlarge it 3 times by pressing the right bracket key as shown on the screen and place it as I'm also showing on the screen. Continue to place them abutting each other until the entire floor is filled. We will be using these as our ceilings shortly. We're going to use the same slab, but this time in black, and enlarge it until it fills the space as shown. We'll be using these as the floor of the garage. Please keep in mind this is just an example. If your garage is larger or smaller, you may want to make the slab larger or smaller using less or more of them for the flooring. You can see I filled in the gap between the 2 large slabs with slabs that are not enlarged to the same extent. I'm going to use one last slab here that I'm going to blow up to about 4 squares wide, and it's going to stick essentially out from the garage and then out onto the sidewalk to look like a driveway into the garage. It takes a little bit of tinkering around to make sure you get it right, and I'll usually go up and check it and come back down and go up and check it and come back down a couple of times to make sure it's set correctly. But it does create a neat effect, which you'll see here in a little bit when we start raising these pieces into place. We're going to elevate the floor slabs first. We're going to grab the largest one and using the Alt and number 9 buttons, so press Alt, press number 9 at the same time, you'll elevate the slab up until it just passes the height of the wall of the basement. That should make it pretty much even with the ground. Do that with all the slabs, all the black slabs, and then we'll have our floor in place. And you can see the finished look here. Next, I raise the white ceiling slabs into place. These are a bit more tricky, and I'll check them a couple of times, going from the basement to the surface to get them into just the right place. I raise the first one, check the placement, and then leaving it there, raise the next one in relation to it, and then check its placement. In this case, the second placement is where I like them to be. I don't make it flush with the roof of the garage if I plan on building anything there. The slabs need to be positioned with a small gap between themselves and the surface you are going to be building on. Otherwise, there can be occasional sort of gaffes when the Sims attempt to interact with certain objects in the build. This method, leaving a gap, prevents that and the Sims behave normally. We'll be covering up the gap shortly with some exterior decor. For now, let's go ahead and move all of these white slabs into place, again using Alt and 9, just to elevate them up. When we swing around to the other side, obviously the white slabs are covered by the black one, the parking lot slab. Just slide the black one out of the way, raise the white ones up into place, and then slide the black one back over where it belongs when you're finished, and we do that on each side. We'll take a quick look here at what we've done so far. You can see we have the floor in place, the parking surface, and the ceiling, so that when you look from underneath now, you no longer see sky, you see something of a ceiling. Now we're going to choose the cars that we want to put into the garage. We only have 4 spaces for this one. I'll pick out about 3 cars here. I use the little cars from the decor, the decoration section. I blow them up until they fit a 3x5 space. You can see when the grid expands to 3 squares by 5 squares. They're usually what I consider about the right sort of sim size. Once they're at that point, elevate them using Alt and 9. Also, you'll need to hold Alt down to kind of slide them into place. For some reason here, the minivan was the hardest. The next two, I didn't have as much trouble with. I did alter, I guess, the viewpoint of the camera. Maybe that must have helped, because I had a devil of a time, as you could see there, kind of getting that minivan into place. But once it's in place, it does look good. It looks correct. And so we'll do two more, and you can kind of see how that works. Now that we're at this point, we can go ahead and take out the basement itself. We only needed it as a guide for placing the flooring and the ceiling. If we leave it in place, when we're on the ground level and we go above the first floor, everything that we place will disappear. If we slide it out of the way, as I've just done, then we won't have that problem, and we'll be able to see what we've placed no matter where we are level-wise on the build. You can see that the piece I put in place to act as a driveway to the sidewalk actually slid when we moved the wall. That's okay. Just move it back into place if it happens to you, and you know, lift it back up where it was. It's not that big a deal. Next, it's time to cover up the gaps that we left with the fake ceiling. I tend to use natural elements here. You can play around with different items, but I do like the more natural elements. It gives it more of a polished, sort of upscale look. If you're not going that way, though, you know, you could use all sorts of things, maybe kitchen cabinets, maybe tables, maybe bookshelves shrunk down to cover up the gap, you know, turned backwards and then shrunk down. So a lot of different options. You could also put graffiti onto the structure, you know, maybe put some garbage around it, things like that if you're going for more of a lower end look. In this case, as you can see, though, I did go with a natural look. I went with these planters. I went with some graffiti. I left the two openings there, the two large openings, mostly so you could see into the garage more easily. Typically, the opening that does not have, you know, the drive coming out of it, as I did down to the sidewalk, that would be covered with those panels, just like the opening next to it. When we swing this around, you're going to see a different sort of way of doing it, where I use slate panels to cover the front, and I end up taking out the sort of structural panels altogether. And then along the bottom, I tend to cover it with some bushes, as you'll see here, the sort of square hedges. And I follow the same theme all the way around the structure. We're coming to the end of this tutorial and this build. One of the last things I'll do is add some lighting, and the lighting I really like to use will give me a chance to show you our last cheat here, which is BB.IgnoreGamePlayUnlocksEntitlement. So it basically unlocks all of the things that you normally receive, I guess, through playing the game. And there's like a light strip there that I really like to use, so I'm going to pull that out. We'll put it onto the build. And, you know, do a few touch-ups, make sure the paint is painted, make sure the railings are painted. And that does it for this first half of the tutorial. Actually, the very large half, it's much more than half. The second smaller half of this tutorial that illustrates establishing custom spawn points on your lot is coming up now. First things first, to create custom spawn points using in-game assets, you must have the City Living expansion pack. We'll need the elevators for use in penthouse lots from that pack. To move the elevator from a penthouse lot to a standard lot, place it on the surface as shown, surround it with walls to create a small room containing only the device. Then save the room to your inventory. This will enable you to place the elevator on any lot in the game by simply placing the room. As shown here, we're going to just go into inventory, grab our new room with the elevator in it, place it on an empty lot. We'll take the elevator out of the room, delete the room, and then shrink the elevator down using the left bracket button, as shown here. Also, you can place it on an existing lot where the structure is already built, provided you have enough room left someplace to set it down. Once we have the elevator set where we want our sim to spawn when he enters the lot, we simply can disguise it as shown here with a plant, or garbage can. There's a lot of different options you can use. In fact, we're going to go ahead and use a garbage can here on the mall side of this build. This is a 2-building build, of course, with the tower on one side, the mall on the other. And in the mall parking garage, I want my sim to spawn there as though he's just parked. So we're going to use the garbage can there for that spawn point to disguise the elevator. And we'll have him go ahead and go there. Now, I'll do an example here to show you of how he can go to one lot. We'll have him go over to the Hotel California, and then I'll spawn him back over to the tower, to his apartment tower, and you can see how this works in action. And there we have it. You can see he, instead of spawning in the street, out in the cul-de-sac, he spawns right there at the start, at his front door by that plant. My original thought was to have him cross his apartment and cross the parking garage to get to the mall. That's why I also wanted the spawn point for the mall to be in the parking garage, because that's what connects those two structures. I actually wanted it set up so that it would appear he was walking directly across. In this case, I've got it set inside the parking garage, one level below, but we can move it up to the top level of the parking garage, and in that fashion you can see how, my original thought was to have him leave his apartment, cross the parking garage, and then cross over to the mall, and it would look a little more seamless. Instead of him leaving his apartment and showing up out on the street, he would leave the apartment building and actually come like he just walked across that little bridge there to the other half of the parking garage. We'll see the example of that actually right now. And there you have it. He shows up exactly opposite from where he was, across this sort of little bridge I made there. And it just provides more of a sense of realism. It's not necessary at all, but I felt like it provided more of a sense of realism and added just a little something to the overall gameplay. This concludes the second tutorial in this series. Please join me next time for the third and final tutorial from Del Sol, where we will tool around with the new terrain tools using the estate shown here as a base for our examples. In the meantime, thank you so very much for watching. If you like this video, please consider clicking the like button and subscribing to my channel for future content. You can keep abreast of all my things Sims by following me on Twitter at JasonSterling70 or Instagram Jason Anthony Sterling, and Facebook on my World of Sims page. There's actually the name of the page, My World of Sims. In the meantime, I thank you again, and I'll see you with my next video. Thanks.